Hi there, my name's Katie and sometimes I quilt. Welcome back. Welcome to my garden. We're outside today for a very specific and real reason. I have a finish. I've just finished taking some video and some photos of the finish. I'm going to talk through it. But we're out in the garden because of allergies. Not mine. I would avoid the garden because of allergies. The reason is behind me and just over there as well. But I've got a sister who's being gifted this in a couple of hours who is really allergic to cats. So I have cats in there. They have been banished and I'm out here and hopefully we can avoid allergy problems. Anyway, that's probably more than you needed. For those of you who managed to stick through allergy problems, we'll get on with the quilt. All right, so we're now going to see how well a white background quilt shows up out in the sun. I'm not in the direct sun, but here we are. It's a winding ways quilt. It's quite big. I don't know exactly how big because I have washed it. I measured it before, but we know how these things go and it will have shrunk a little. So here is the quilt in all of its glory. I really like the colour placement. Many hours of plotting and planning that. But also I got the rows mixed up and the blocks got changed around, and when I sewed it together and put it out, it was different to the way that I thought it was going to be. But that's okay too. So lights, greens and blues. People who know me know that I don't, generally speaking, do a lot with green. But here we go. Katie can indeed work with green. And I'll give you an up close of the quilting. Hopefully you can see that. Really good make, really fun. And there are the birds on the back. Winding ways, and this quilt came about with a design brief, and I'm going to talk about this quilt and how it is that we gift quilts and sometimes we don't give quilts, and sometimes quilts that are intended for gifts don't end up being gifts, and all of that quilt gifty goodness. I actually rarely give quilts as gifts. It has to be pretty spectacular for me to be able to have the presence of mind and, quite frankly, be able to maintain enthusiasm to make something that I don't really like. Not that I don't like this quilt, I do. But if it's a big difference between me choosing to make something and other people deciding what it is that I'm going to make, which is a thing. Anyhow, back to the quilt. So as I said, this is a winding ways quilt. I used the AccuQuilt system to make this, so all of the cutting was done on my AccuQuilt cutter. I will make this quilt again. I think it would make a really interesting scrappy quilt to make, in terms of a way to use up some of the stash that I need to use, which I keep alluding to. It's all solids, which I say I don't do, but I actually, turns out when I had a look, I do solid quilts a bit. But I usually say that I don't. But anyway, this one's solids. The design brief that I got from my sister was the colour palette, and she was really good. She gave me squares of colour to play with, and she wanted white background, so we accommodated that. She also gave me some design ideas, which was fabulous, as far as giving a design brief for a quilt that you specifically want. So this was for her wedding. Timelines. Haven't done really well there. To be perfectly honest with you, her wedding was in March last year. It's now in March 2024. It's now October 2025. Yeah, look, she's getting a quilt. These things take time. How long did it take me to make? Can't remember. Haven't gone back and had a look through the phone to see if I took photos of the start of the quilt. There are very few people in the family that have seen this quilt. And I'm also debating a change of ways that I deal with gifting quilts. So I might come back to that thought later. But for the moment, I need to get this packed up, ready to go, and meet up with my sister to give it to her. So the front is all solids. The backing fabric, which we've decided as a family we quite like, is lots of Australian native animals. Not animals, birds. So we've got kookaburras and galahs and magpies and things. We've just we're just about to finish swoopy attack bird season. So the magpies will hopefully start leaving us alone when we go for our walks in the afternoon. The galahs remain stupid, but beautiful. So the quilt was made, the top was made by me. I got the quilt quilted, really expertly quilted, fabulous job by Raylee from Sunflower Quilting. She did a great job, for which I am eternally grateful. Lots of lovely swirlies. I think you can see that turning up there, which really was sympathetic to the design. We also chose a really light blue thread for the quilting because it picked up some of the colours that was in the quilt itself, and it kind of softened it in a bit. And after much debate, toing and froing, we decided on white binding. And I say we because it was a little bit of a committee decision, which happens. Anyhow, it's finished. It's going to be packed up. It's going to be put in a bag, and then I'm going to go and put it in the car so I can take it to the airport without it seeing the cats. And hopefully it doesn't make my sister sick, but she can wash it. It is within her power to do that. And before it goes to South Australia, which is where it will live. It does have a label. I'm not going to show you the label, but I did a little bit of fancier stuff with it. I put a little border on it and stitched it down. But yeah, a wedding quilt, a finish. Anyhow, I assume that because of where we're at in the week that there's going to be more in a moment. That's probably going to be inside and away from the pollen and on a different day. So we'll see what happens. Cheerio for the moment. So here we are, as predicted. Gifting quilts and handmade items. I've had a bit of a think about this. Now, I'd actually be really curious to know how you determine someone is handmade gift worthy, particularly if it's like something that takes a lot of time, effort and deliberateness. So whether it's a cross stitch or a big thing, not necessarily little bits and pieces, if you'd understand what I mean. Anyway, I think I am going to change my approach to gifting quilts to be, I'm just going to make things that I like to make and that I want to make. And if nobody wants them in the house, I have had a habit a few times where I've made something I've wanted to make and then washed it and finished it and washed it, folded it up, put it on the table. And it usually lasts a couple of hours before somebody comes along and says, is this for anyone or can I take it? And the quilt distribution system works out that way. Because I found that I've really started to struggle with making specific quilts with specific colour palettes, just the specificness of it, where a lot of the autonomy around choice of fabric and a choice of colour and things like that isn't mine, it's somebody else's. And I'm trying to find a way to navigate just a blanket ban on gifting things against actually moving things on that need to be moved on, if that makes sense. So maybe some sort of present cupboard arrangement. I'm also pretty selective of who gets quilts and under what conditions from me, like in terms of like nieces, and should I get any nephews, baby birth, absolutely. That can be a thing. Weddings, broadly speaking, yep. Really significant birthdays, probably. But I haven't really, my broader family haven't really made many requests for quilts. It's not that they don't know that I quilt, they just have never really requested them. That doesn't count my children. They have. Anyway, so how do you cope with that? And yeah, the elephant in the room, my hair is a different colour. That's okay too. It was deliberate. Yeah. Other than that, this week I've taught an applique class, and I'll talk about that probably a little bit more in the next video. And I've done other little bits and pieces. And I've also lost my scissors. I've got 2 pairs of scissors that I adore and love, and I can't find either one of them. So at the moment I am cleaning in hopes of finding them, and I will report back to the class if that happens and I do manage to find those scissors. Anyway, hope you all have a good week.